I'm Erica LaRose, and this is the Shuttlepod Show.
I took a picture of dog on my yard. I brought it into the edit bay and transferred it. I put it onto this machine. He wrapped it into a planet. I put some blue gas on top of a yellow and put it in the episode.
That is moving magic
That
right there,
is
ladies
awesome.
and gentlemen.
Gonna go and do my convention thing. Got my costume, I'm going now. Yeah, we're having a ball. It's Star Trek, y'all. Hey, down the corner, beam me up.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Shuttlepod Show. Today, we have very special guest, Ron B. Moore. We'll be answering your fan questions, doing some Star Trek trivia, finding ourselves on Connor's remote island, and much more. As always, our Patreon members get a full extended version of this. I'm Erica LaRose, but before we move on, we have a special message from Andrew Robinson.
Like, subscribe, and join us on Patreon.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
And now for our hosts, Dominic Keating and Connor Trinneer.
Well, hello. I love your
Hello,
dress.
darling.
Thank you. It's spring.
Look at you.
Right?
You look very spring.
What is the first day of spring? Is it today?
No, it was, last week?
Was it?
It's about a week ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
a few days
last
ago.
week.
On my birthday, March 19th?
Perhaps.
Maybe.
You're a spring
Oh,
baby.
when was your birthday?
It was my birthday. 42.
Good number.
What is that, around the waist?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my shirt, my jacket ties.
Nice.
Still a little chilly out, but that's
it's
why
raining.
Wash has
It's
his...
been pouring with it. I was going to say, Wash looks
Sweater.
He honestly did Joba style Wash this week.
Oh, that's your
Did you
next
know
job.
The what?
Look at him. He's sprung. Spring has sprung at the top of Wash.
He looks terrible.
He looks better than he did 6 weeks ago.
Mark took him away.
There we go.
All right. You know what? There's a
What do you think, Ron?
I'm thinking of showing up the drought.
yeah. We got all the rain, but none of it went to Wash.
Yeah, it looked green before Lake Mead went down, you know.
Look, he's got some grey pubes down below is all it is.
Yeah.
Aww.
Look, he's been sprinkled and everything.
Yeah.
Well, we're delighted this week, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers, to have... this is our first time having someone truly technical
Below the line.
in the chair, below the line.
Below the line.
And I'll be honest with you, Ron. You know, we've had directors and a lot of actors in the chair, and you know, Connor and I have a more than a rudimentary understanding about what they did. You know, I was thinking to myself when you coming here, I mean, I have some sort of, you know, ballpark understanding. And as Connor said to me earlier, he said, well, I remember he used to show up with a clipboard.
Hugging it like a baby.
Hugging it like a baby and taking some notes. But I mean, you've got to explain to us and, you know, to our cousin in Ohio, exactly what your part in the whole sort of magic making of the show was. And I know you started out life as a photographer, right?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
And initially for the Army.
Navy. Yes.
Navy, sorry.
Yeah, it was Navy photography, submarine Navy.
So you were always interested in taking photographs and things photographic. How did that then transpire into getting into the more technical aspects of moving pictures and?
I always wanted to work in film.
Right.
As long as I can remember, and photography was the direction that I chose to do. Navy was good. I was a photographer in high school, all that sort of thing. But my aspirations were always I wanted to work on movies. And everywhere I asked people, teachers, schools, whatever, I wanted to work big movies, television, Hollywood kind of
Because
stuff.
you grew up here in California.
In California,
didn't you?
yeah.
So it was part of your, you know.
Yeah. But
Here in LA,
everybody
or-
said, I was in San Bernardino.
San Bernardino.
When I grew up, yeah.
Oh, San Bernardino.
Yeah, wonderful place. It was really cool back
My
in
high
the day.
school
but
track
it's
coach
the-
was San Bernardino. He
Really?
Yeah, San Bernardino.
San Bernardino.
So after the war, and you finish up in the Navy, and you've got some chops with a camera in your hand, What's the next step for you getting into the business?
Well, I went to Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara and studied there. And then I went to San Diego to get up the credits I needed to graduate. Decided that I was in a weird position because it just seemed to me things were taking a shift towards electronics. So I took a correspondence course, learned how to fix TVs and that sort of thing, and started down that road. I was, started fixing radios, then building TV cameras and stuff technical. And one day I was working on a telecine, which is a machine to take film and put it onto video. Right. And that was it. I was working my way up at this company in San Diego. And I sat down with this old guy who worked there. And we were working on this big circuit board that had color circuitry or something. And the guy sits back and says, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I've always really wanted to work in a movie business. And he leaned back and he said, I should have left this place 30 years ago.
Oh,
and that night I had a dream. And it was me sitting in his chair, right? And it scared the hell out of me. So I quit. I quit the next day.
Wow.
And everybody's like, are you nuts? You get a job first, right? Don't just quit. And I said, well, if I quit, I've got motivation.
Sure.
What sort of age are you at this? Are you in your 20s?
Yeah, early 20s.
So you've got the time, but it's ballsy, man. But it's ballsy to take that.
My attitude was, look, I better try this and fail than wake up someday and have never tried. So I'm in San Diego and I'm commuting to Hollywood and knocking on doors. And got the job that way, and it worked out really well for me. Started out as a driver, took a big cut in pay.
And what sort of doors were you knocking on when you came up to Hollywood? I mean, were you going to studios, or were there independent technical places that you could go to?
I had done a lot of letter writing to stuff, but most of the places I was looking to at the time were optical houses, visual effects places. And the first place I went, after doing a lot of research, I kept a notebook. I never sent the same resume twice. I just kept notes. And I remember the very first place I figured I'd go to was a place that was least attractive to me, because I know I was going to go in and blow it, right?
Right.
I drove up from San Diego and I park and I'm sweating in the car and I'm thinking, okay, it's time to go. And no, I look at my nose. Finally, I got the guts up, get out of the car, I knock on the doors. A guy named Joe Westheimer, and I went in and talked to him and I blew it.
Really?
Yeah. Because it's one of those things where you walk in and you try to impress, like I knew stuff. Well, yeah, I was educated. I had a college degree, but I knew nothing about
What
the
skill
business.
set did you have to get the job at the time?
Well, since I'd studied electronics, I knew computers. I knew electronics. He was visionary enough to see that was part of the future, and I had a degree in cinematography.
Is this early 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your computer was the size of this room.
And the computer, back then, computers were so new. Nobody really got into it. But it helped me get into it. And I was driving, right? I'd take film, big cut and pay, using my own car. First day, drove into a studio. Studio, man. And they let me in the gate. I'm actually going to get to park in here, right?
Do you remember which studio it was?
Yeah, it was... I think it was Hollywood General at the time. It's over by the Formosa now.
Okay.
I'm sure
I've
worked there.
Is
I've
that
worked there
not
since.
the Raleigh? What is that one called?
Yeah.
No, the Formosa's.
I think that is.
It's called the Lot.
You're absolutely right.
It was Raleigh, and now it's
the lot. Yeah, my manager had a place on the Lot for a minute there. It's a nice little studio too.
It was nice. And at that time, it was all Aaron Spelling and all of the shows that were on at the time. I remember walking in and driving. I had this box of film. Up this no, what
sort of visual effects were being utilized in shows at that time?
I go up the stairs, I knock on this door, I got my box of film, I'm ready to go. The door comes open. I'm face to face with Jack Webb.
Oh.
Right? You remember Jack Webb?
Yeah.
I don't. So
British, you wouldn't. But he was Joe Friday from Dragnet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the movie, The D.I., it was the D.I. that I saw.
Oh, wow.
Here's, just the facts, ma'am. And it's my box of film, right? But what it was the main title. At the time, Jack Webb was doing a series called Project UFO. And this was a main title. What I didn't know was that this was a redo, that he had aired a main title the week before, and there was an error in the writer's credit. And because of it, he was fined. a big deal. And this, what I had was the correction.
Oh.
This is my first day on the job. I don't know crap, right? I got nothing. I hand him the box. He walks it over to a movie hole, and he's running this stuff through there, and he looks at it. The mistake was still in there.
Oh.
And he just come down. I'm ready to crawl on the floor and scrub it with a toothbrush, the DI, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really wonderful way to
start the...
What did he say?
Well, he was pissed.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But he understood. I got the chance to work with him more later. He was a nice guy and, you know, very historic.
Did you get that job?
To finish what I was saying, yeah, that was the first place I knocked on it and I blew it. But I went around, I looked at all these other places, Future General, which was Doug Trumbull, and all these places. But when the call came in, it was that first interview that called me in. And it was through Westheimer that I went and did that. And a guy I worked with later, legend in visual effects, is Richard Edlund.
I was going to come to that. He's a legend, isn't he?
Legend.
You know.
Well, he started the same place I did with Joe Westheimer. Before I was
So you
there.
knew each other before Edlund set up his own company that you
I
then
didn't
went
know
to work.
him, but we had a similar background.
Right, gotcha.
Right.
How were visual effects being generated at that time then?
Everything was photochemical, right?
What does that mean?
Meaning that we're using optical printers and film, no electronics whatsoever.
Were they using models and...
Yes.
Yeah. So you're shooting small set models and...
Yes.
Yeah. And...
and everything was a visual effects back then, too. You couldn't do a dissolve without going to an optical house.
Right.
And putting a dissolve in, or all the title credits, everything all was done manually and chunk through this optical
It was a
printer.
real process, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I worked through, I did a lot of features and stuff. And when I got to work with Richard Edlund,
You did some big stuff there.
Well, we did 2010 out there, and then Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Raiders.
All photo chemical stuff, which was, with Richard, it was neat because we were working with 70 millimeter film.
You did the original Ghostbusters movie.
Yes.
And all that
That
stuff.
was my first movie credit.
No,
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that has some major visual effects in it for the
did.
time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
you've never
I
seen
was
anything
really-
like that. That whole Sigourney Weaver moment at the end. That's all you.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, and a lot of us.
The marshmallow guy.
You know, but I remember walking in there because one of the first jobs they gave me was the Marshmallow Man walking behind the building.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
I remember telling the boss, I said, look, I'd like to do this shot all the way through just to get to feel how things run, right? And then I'll be set up and I can do whatever you throw at me, but I'd like to just go through one all the way and just, get the feel of the land. Just for the record, it was the first shot I started. It was the last shot I finished.
Really?
Working on the show.
Oh my God.
Well,
It's just-
okay, walk me
it's
through that.
complicated.
How do you set that up? Is that? I mean, how do you? Is there a guy in a marshmallow suit?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is there?
Yeah, but there's so many. In that particular shot alone, there was models, because we built the models of the buildings that they walked by, and these were very sophisticated, right? Behind, you'd look through the windows, there were pool tables and people in there. They even had a scene that if people knew it was there, it would have censored it. All of these things going through in the windows, and then you got the first row of models, then you got the Marshmallow Man who's walking behind this, and then you got another set of models in the back with the water towers and all of that.
Right.
All of these things had to
Amazing.
fit
You're
in
making a
together.
little movie in a movie.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, and you cannot even imagine how complex it is. I mean, it is.
How many people would work on a scene like that? I mean, is it in 50, 60 scenes?
Yeah.
Are you a model maker too?
No, I didn't get into that. What I was doing at that time was mostly optical lineup.
Right. I was going right.
Which is putting all the pieces together that put it up. It was great because it really teaches organization. Because just to put a shot, you're talking something maybe 6 seconds, right?
Yeah.
On the film. This is going to take, 6 months, 7 months to get it done. Hundreds of people involved in different things, building the models, shooting the models, getting all the elements. Then it comes to me, and I got all these pieces of film, and I got to composite them all together on an optical printer, one frame at a time. But we're working with 70 millimeter, And we're working with
I was
color
going to say, it's in
separation.
70 mil, is it? Yeah.
Yeah,
To
and
get
we'll-
that depth.
Yeah, and
Right.
well, the problem was that the film was shot in 35.
Right.
Right. And Richard's idea was if we shoot all the effects in 70, by the time we do all this duping, right, we make all of these film elements and reduce it back down to the CinemaScope, the quality will be the same. Right? It'll match in good with the 35 original that you shot,
Right.
Sure.
even though it's dupy.
It's
Right.
not going
Right.
to look completely like a separate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the problem turned out that when they first did our shots and it went through and they screened it, our stuff just jumped out because it was better than the original footage from the negative. Right. So
Right.
we had to go in and adjust down the optical printer. We called it the
The
Zap
actors at the
printer.
pool table look better than
exactly. Rather than the real guys.
But what does that mean to dial it down?
I just kind of cracked the focus and you know, it just couldn't be quite as sharp as
Sure.
what we had. And
How do you smudge that up to make it fit?
no, what they did is they worked with the lenses and things. And,
Vaseline.
and redesigned. Yeah, exactly. Shoot it through a nylon, you know.
Right. And you're fine.
It's the film
6 months of
soul,
work and you
isn't
put it through a nylon.
Get the Vaseline out.
Yeah, I think it was probably a bit much because when they say things like that, that's what you want to hear. Our stuff is so cool,
Sure.
you know.
Right.
So I'm sure there's probably a lot more to it than the
What sort of
reality.
budget would you get for stuff? It was a big budget. Huh?
Oh yeah. And the problem with budgets in those days is that when you have something like ILM doing it or Boss, the company where Richard ran, you price in, you charge them more, right?
Of course you do. Just
You
like
know,
any job.
Well, no, the idea is that, look, you're paying for your film, right? But you got to understand that the last film we did, in the case of Ghostbusters, let's say, right? The last film we did was 2010. And in 2010, they spent a little more because part of it went into research. And now you guys are getting the advantage of that. So you're going to pay it forward.
I
for
see
the
a
next
premium
film.
for
Sure.
what we now know.
Yeah.
Right.
And a shortcut to getting a better deal, a better product.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Today, boy, that turned around 100%.
Oh, I'm sure.
Now they're putting visual effects companies out of business.
They are.
Right? You'd look at like Life of Pi, right? Academy Award winning
Stunning.
movie,
Yeah.
right?
Stunning.
Put the visual effects companies out
I've
of
got to
business.
say,
Wouldn't pay
that
'em.
opening sequence in Life of Pi
Oh, it's-
in 3D is about one of the most stunning 15 minutes of film you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah, and yet it
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning.
it killed a visual effects company.
They went to
put them right under
Taiwan. He went to Taiwan to do that, didn't he, Ang Lee? I think he set up a whole studio there.
for a lot of the shooting.
Yeah.
What killed it, though?
Yeah,
what
what put 'em out of
what
business?
makes...
They deal it down so they can't make any money. The problem with visual effects, and I've seen this so many times, and it's hard to put it, but I was working on a feature one time. If you're a visual effects producer, your job is, and this is what I tried to do on Star Trek a lot, is when you go into pre-production, you try to say how much something's going to cost, right? And you're all sitting around in a movie, and I always figured my job was to get as much money as I possibly could,
Sure.
right? Get as much money. I want to know what they want to spend, and then I want that money to show on the screen. Now, I know there's a trick there. If I go too far, then I can see Brandon, right?
Right.
The script line says the Enterprise flies by, followed by 150 ships. All right? Okay, I budget that out. 150 ships. Cool, we get to make it. Yeah, and you budget it out. Brandon takes one look, and we're going to see it looking at the ass end of Enterprise going away. And maybe another ship or two will come into the frame on the side.
Sure.
So now we got 3 ships, right? And the budget goes, so you got to kind of use your head to get it reasonable. But it's, you always get the, how much is it going to cost to do this shot? Well, like I know. I don't know what it's
Sure.
going to cost, but I can give you an educated guess. But the question comes up, you want a spaceship. Great. What do you want? You want a Volkswagen or do you want a Rolls Royce?
Right.
I'm going to budget a Rolls Royce, right? Now, if that's too much, tell me, and we'll get a Chevy.
Sure.
If that's too much, okay,
Right.
now we'll go down to the Volkswagen,
Right.
right? I don't care. It'll come up, and it's just a balance. But then once this is all settled and done, and I got a number, I figure it's my job to make it work for that number, right? If I've got $50,000 to put together a space sequence, then my job is to put it through for 50, not 45, not 55, but to bring it in for that kind of money.
Right.
Any particular shot, which is in production, they always want to know how much you're going to shot. Well, I don't know. It depends on what happens when we shoot. It depends on, any complications that come up. But overall, on the whole budget for the show, I'm going to bring it in. Right. This one may cost more than I thought. This one a little less, but I'll balance it for you. So you get into feature stuff, and the directors will go nuts. They do it on the TV shows too. A case in point, I had I can't remember which show it was, but one of the directors, he wanted to change something at the last minute. Now, I've got it budgeted.
You've already shot, or you've...
He's shooting. We're on set. He's ready to shoot it. I've budgeted out a shot. We've talked about it. And this is what we're going to do. And to come up and suddenly the camera that was supposed to be locked, right, which is back to that Volkswagen Rolls-Royce thing. You want to move the camera? That's a Rolls-Royce. You want to have it locked? That's the Volkswagen. Tell me where you want to go. The director is there, right? And agrees we're going with the Volkswagen. Volkswagen, right? Yes. Okay. We get to the set. He sets up the shot. It's the Rolls. All right?
Without telling anyone. He shows up that morning.
Yeah. It's just setting it up. All right.
You're the guy that has to go...
Yeah. And I remember just happened when we're on the set, Whoopi's there, Brent's there. It's late at night because visual effects were the guys that take the time,
of the day.
Put it for the last. And everybody wants to go home. I see this thing set up. I realize, oh my God, that's going to cost me 3-4 times what I budgeted. I can't do it. So the director.
You're going to name him?
The director comes up and he says, everybody, all right, if we do this shot my way, we're going to be out of here in 30 minutes. That'll be a wrap. It's going to be a oneer. If we do it Ron's way, we're going to be here for another 2 hours.
He threw you under the bus?
Yeah.
Mother.
Right. Oh. And I can just see Brent and Whoopi, and they're all over there and
I wonder what the actors were voting for.
Yeah, exactly. I like half an hour.
And who could blame them? It's late.
Sure.
It's one of these nights it's going to be open-ended.
Well, it's one of the things that, you and I were talking about.
Panda Express, I might stay.
Yeah.
Little chicken fried rice. It's the thing that, you would come in, you'd have your notebook, and none of us really knew what you were doing. I mean, we really, truly, you would come in and you'd be talking to the director and be like, well, we can do that. And you'd write something down. And you always held your notebook like this. It was funny. There was something interesting about it. You'd hold, you'd really cradle it. And but what would happen is, of course, we would figure out what we could do or not do with the director, and then all of a sudden, the episode shows up, and you've created all this stuff that we weren't a part of.
The science fictional bit.
Yeah.
The visuals. Where did you shoot that stuff, by the way? Was that at Paramount, or did you have a separate?
We had another place that we could shoot, but we did most of it at Paramount.
At Paramount? On our stages, or did you have separate stage? Yeah, you do it, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we'd use a second unit stage or something.
I don't ever remember seeing you guys being tucked away somewhere.
And we had a motion control stage that we could use too.
Right.
We didn't do much motion control by the time we got to Enterprise.
And on Enterprise, were you still building models?
Not so much.
No, it was not. It was all.
No, by that time we had pretty much made this shift, and it was a good shift.
When did that shift happen? Was that between Voyager and
we started it in Voyager. The first CGI stuff we actually did was in TNG. It was I'll never forget it. It was a crystalline entity on a show called Data Lore. And they let us try it, and we built this thing, very complex. Took a lot of time, cost us a lot of money because it was so early in CG at the time. And Rob Legato was the main supervisor back in the early days that we were there. He's gone on to do some really great work. Anyway, I just remember they finally showed this thing up, and Rob comes in and says, for all the money we spent and everything, I could have spray painted a tumbleweed and come up with the same thing, And he was right, He was right. But we had tried it, and then we came on later, and we did a few things. One of them was, I called it the Raviola Monster, where we had this space monster. We did a cesarean section out in space. Who can beat that kind of stuff? These scripts would really...
How much lead time would you have for things like this? I mean, because I imagine different episodes would require less or more, and some of the big ones, you must have been like, oh no, now what do we do?
Yeah.
I mean, would you have... How much lead time before the season started shooting? Did you have any of that?
A month or two.
Really?
Yeah. The earlier shows in the season, we were better off.
Right.
But once it started to roll, we had 3 at a time. And this was broke into 2 crews. I did every other show. And we had another team that did the alternating. And, with 3 scripts, I mean, it was mind-boggling because you had, one is in pre-production, one is in production, and we're doing post-production on another one. And I've gone up to director and say, well, what did you think of the shot I showed you last night? I was just real proud of it. And the guy looks at me, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, it's not your show,
Not
right?
your show. At what point, you and Dan Curry teamed up at some point in the
Very early. I had worked with Dan before.
Which version of the show did you and Dan sort of start to work together? And did you sort of tag team each other and separating it up?
We became partners actually very early. When Next Generation started, it was first Rob Legato and Gary Hutzel.
Right.
And then I came on. They got really bogged down. And then I came on and we did the pilot and a couple other episodes. It was nuts. It was crazy because we didn't have the organization down yet. That's kind of where I came in to really start organizing stuff because of all of that optical work I'd done, like the Ghostbusters. We have, 70 pieces of film that all got to go together in the right order at the right time to put 1 6-second shot together, right?
Right.
By the time we got about halfway through first season of Next Generation, I started to get a handle on how to handle it, but it was crazy. And then Dan came in, and probably the 3rd or 4th episode, we broke into the 2 teams.
Right.
And it was Dan and I and Rob Legato and Gary Hutzel.
Did Rob and Gary, did they stay on all through the 17 years, or
No.
did they wandered off?
Yeah, they took off. They went on to Deep Space Nine, so they pretty much handled that.
Okay.
And then Dan and I stayed with it.
So what got you onto the Next Gen? How did that? What's that story? Where you're in the biz and you're in Hollywood, and then the show shows up.
Yeah, I kind of looked at it. In fact, I was working on Abyss and a couple of shows with Michael Jackson. And
you did Black and White,
Black
right?
and White.
No shit.
Yeah, I actually did 2. I did one earlier, Smooth Criminal stuff, where he turned into a transformer. And
Michael Westmore was here a couple of weeks ago, and he got personally hired by Michael Jackson to put him in disguise so he could leave the compound in Encino.
The house was in Los Feliz.
No, in Encino.
You sure?
Yeah, it was the family house. It was the Jackson family house in Encino.
But he dressed him up as a woman.
He dressed him up as more of a bag. Was it a bag? Just someone. They put him literally in a VW Bug and made him look slightly. I don't want to say homeless. You can't say that anymore. Unhoused.
unhoused. Oh, man.
And so he could drive out the front door of his house anyway. But you and Michael Westmore both have had a working relationship with Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Jackson. And going into the film with him, to me, I remember walking onto the set when we were doing, if you remember Black and White, there was one scene in particular where Michael's dancing and he's breaking through the smoke with the war scenes on it. Yeah. Well, we were doing that, and we shot Michael on a treadmill, a horse treadmill, and he was very, very, very sick that day. But anyway, I've been walking into the studio, and this big guy comes walking up to me and says, "You're not here to be friends with Michael Jackson." And I said, okay. Hope he's not here to be friends with me. Right. Which was really not a concern, but
hilarious.
But just before he gets on, they crank it up and they're telling everybody, now, Michael, when he does this, he wants the music to be really loud. And they're handing earplugs. And I'm on a sound stage with Michael Jackson, who's going to be performing here live, and you want me to stuff something in my ears?
Yeah. No way.
God bless, man.
No.
Did you have much interaction with him personally? No, not particularly, no.
No, not really. I mean, I just sat and watched.
What was it like being in the presence
And-
of that genius?
Took some notes on my clipboard.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Did you know you were in the presence of, something really special when you're just watching the man perform? That
Oh,
close up?
absolutely. Again,
Yeah.
that was the second time I got a chance to do
kidding.
that. And it was, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was a big fan. I think Michael's genius, or was genius. And to have the chance to have worked with him, it was special.
Big honor.
But in the years between the two, between the, I think of it as Smooth Criminal, but it was actually the space thing afterwards we did most of the work on. But between then and when we did Black or White, he had changed a lot. And also the thing was neat with Black and White was that it was John Landis directing it. And John Landis is another underrated, but the helicopter accident didn't help.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone will,
Right.
would be remembering. But the Blues Brothers and stuff, what a director, and
really.
what he did with Eddie
Did he
Murphy.
direct American Werewolf in London?
Yes.
Is that him?
Yeah.
I mean,
An incredibly technical director too, you
Yeah.
know, and must have been a delight for someone like you to.
No,
sort of-
he's a hard ass. But,
Yeah.
but you have to be.
I
you
think
gotta be
especially
in,
in
control,
that sort of arena, you have to be
Yeah.
really meticulous and specific about what you want. when you accept.
Exactly.
So going into was there anything on television like Next Generation? It must have been, I would imagine, a job that you got that you were like, oh yeah, this is great because there's nothing's happening on TV like this right now.
It had to do with, Project UFO and some of the other stuff that we worked at were of sense, Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and all these things, really set a
Had a
stage.
tone,
But
right.
what happened was, and this is, to me, what really worked out, and lucky for me too, and especially with the electronics training came into it, was Max Headroom came along. And when Max Headroom came on, this was
New
the
Coke.
first time,
Yeah.
and Rob Legato was involved with that,
Was he?
which was good. And that
Changed
was-
the face of
it
TV.
did, because suddenly digital was beginning to play a part in it.
All right.
Right up to that point, it hadn't, and and then
it
when
really
they
was.
when that went on, they went to a new version of Twilight Zone,
All right.
and it had some electronic stuff too, but it was just getting there. When we went on to Next Generation, Paramount made a brilliant decision. Up to that point, any TV show had to have a film output, right? Because they would show it in other countries as a film.
Oh.
Right? It'd be a TV episode, but in Spain, they'd run it like a theater.
Right.
Oh.
Right? And so they'd need to do it. So we'd do an episode in film, then do a textless so you could put it in different languages and ship these things out.
All right.
Well, when Paramount decided to do Next Generation, they made the decision that we're not going to have a negative of this show.
And what does that mean to me? Because as
Meaning that there won't be a film print
Right.
from a negative. There won't be. We're gonna post this thing electronically, and we're gonna have it. Well, man, that just changed everything.
Right.
And it allowed us to, and being on Next Generation at the time was like, oh my God, we're at the forefront of this. We would walk into an edit bay where we would composite all of the elements that we would shoot, take the notes from my clipboard and put it into reality. We'd go into there and they'd come up and they'd show us this new device. Look at this thing. We call this I can't remember, Mirage, I think it was. Look at this. And the guy sets it up and he plugs it in and he shows the color bars on the screen, right? He says, look what I can do. And he starts hitting buttons and it flies around and it folds the thing into a paper plane and it flies around the thing. And I'm like, that is so cool, right? Like you could, wow, right? People would be renting this thing in an edit bay and I'd say, I'd like to use that, try it. They'd take it away from a paying customer, bring it to us to use on Star Trek for free.
Wow.
And we used all we wanted.
Wow.
That was cool, man. So I went out like for one show, and it's an old story, but I took a picture of dog shit on my yard I brought it into the edit bay and transferred it. I put it onto this machine. He wrapped it into a planet. I put some blue gas on top of that yellow and put it in the episode.
That is moving magic
That
right there,
is
ladies
awesome.
and gentlemen.
After it was all aired, my boss,
It's just a big heap of dog shit.
my boss, that was the episode John Delancey's wife was in. Anyway, my boss calls me and after says, I understood that you took some dog shit and put it in the show. And I looked at him and I said, can't say I don't do shit.
Really?
I believe my agent said the same thing when I got on the show.
That is awesome.
That's a t-shirt. That's
But after
brilliant.
that, almost every director says, can you put the shit planet in mine? But this was, we were right at the cusp, and everything was happening. The mistake they made by the time we got to Enterprise, what I would have liked to have seen is to set us down and say, okay, those days are gone. You're not getting this stuff for free anymore, buddy. People are catching up. You've got to rethink it and find new ways to save us some money so we can, balance it a little bit better. I think it would have been good for us. It would have been refreshing to go in new directions.
What were the restrictions then that you were faced when, or with our show particularly, that you weren't getting to do that?
No, it wasn't so much that. I think what I'm saying is they should have pulled us back a little bit at that point to help secure the longevity of the show.
Right.
Right? Because I
They
think
spent a lot of money, didn't they?
Yeah.
In that first season in particular, they massively overspent, I think.
Oh, yeah.
What was the difference between, because I think our show did the leap or the transition from film to digital.
Yes.
And what was that experience like in terms of producing what you were doing for the show? Was it easier?
A little bit easier because we didn't have to do the film transfer so much anymore. But, I pushed really hard for that. I pushed for that and I pushed for 16:9. And they didn't want to do it.
16:9.
16 by 9 aspect ratio to go for the TVs that are out there today,
Right.
Because they weren't very popular.
They weren't there. They didn't gear up for that at all, did they?
No, but they finally did listen and they finally did do it. So Enterprise did go out with a letterbox, but to put it out letterbox at that time was a gamble.
It's a big to do.
Sure.
Yeah, but they did, and I think that helped too. And again, being at the front like that, there were mistakes made. I mean, I made a mistake very early in TNG when digital tape. We were doing it on 1-inch tape when we started, which is a problem because as you composite, each time you add something, you're taking it down another generation.
Right.
So the quality just starts dropping.
Starts to drop.
Right. And we finally got to a place where we didn't have to do that. Digital tape came along, and now we could dupe and not lose a generation every time we did it. So I really pushed on going into an episode. What I didn't understand was that nobody was ready for it. So yeah, we were
Did
working.
the producers, did the likes of Rick and Brannon, did they get this stuff, or did they have to be educated about that?
I think there was a little bit of education on it, but they were willing to take chances, and I appreciate that.
Did they always follow your lead and your expertise? And
generally that, and my boss was Peter Lauritsen, and we would talk to him, and then he would generally talk to Rick and Brannon and whoever.
And they must have They must have had an appreciation that those highlights of our show, apart from the acting and the characters in the show, but what you were doing was meat and potatoes to the fan base.
Yeah, it was. But on the other hand, and again, as we said, time has passed, so we can be honest with it. I think a little of it pissed them off.
Yeah,
Right.
that they were beholden to.
Well, I think too. We were out winning Emmys and shit, and they weren't.
Yeah.
I was going to come to that.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I
they
was
should
going to
have.
come to that. The show, the Emmys, the show won Emmys. You won 5. God bless. Well,
Yeah. And we were saying last week, the star of the show was
and
actually
I
the
didn't
ship.
win 1. Neither did you.
No.
No, I mean, now that must have ticked him off a bit.
It did tick me off a bit that I never won an Emmy or even a Saturn Award.
It's just a fact.
Well, I didn't mean you guys.
Honestly.
I didn't mean you guys. I was talking about.
I tried not to take
I was
it.
talking about the big boys.
No, but they didn't. I mean, they didn't win Emmys, did they? And it must have ticked him off that you guys were consistently winning Emmys.
Because then all of a sudden it's the attitude. Well, you guys always won them, so
Yeah. They
what's the
brushed.
big deal? What was the damn big deal?
Yeah,
sure.
It was hard. We didn't do it. We had to redesign the academy in order to do that. When I first started, visual effects was part of the art directors, and I used to go out every year and I'd vote. Right? We'd go down to the Beverly Hilton, and we'd get into little panels and stuff. Well, I was voting with the art directors, and what I was trying to prove to them was that I didn't belong there.
Oh.
Right? They're working about, the set dressing and stuff in castles and stuff, and, and then they're voting on visual effects.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like, well,
What do you know?
yeah, this doesn't work.
Right.
So I'd make comments about, I don't like the many blinds in that castle myself, and this stuff, and try to get the point across. And eventually, with Dan Curry, and Dan Curry had probably more to being able to pull this off than I did, but managed to get it where we had our own division, and they set it up.
What sort of era is that the delineation line starts to be actually noted? Is it in the 80s or the?
You mean
90s?
art direction and visual effects?
Yeah.
That split.
Yeah, it was during Next Generation early.
Right.
But then the first years we wouldn't even get nominated because again it was art directors and they didn't know anything about what we were doing, very little. I mean, it is close. I mean, there is a closeness between the art directing and visual effects.
Sure.
I can understand how they would have got together, but technically it's a whole different ballgame. I couldn't build a set.
No.
Sure.
They
can't do what you do.
Build a composite. It's like.
Do you know how they eventually separated the two? Like, how does that happen? The awards?
They got committees together. Again, I think Dan Curry got together with the head of the academy at the time, and they had a lot of meetings. And then finally we created a second division, which at that time was visual effects and titles, which made a little bit more sense.
Right.
And then they set it up. And to be quite honest, the first time we set it up, it made it pretty easy for us to, we pretty much did it. But then it took on a track of its own, and it became pretty good and worked a lot better. Although, side story, Emmy-wise, we go in, we're nominated, Rob Legato's team is nominated, right? We got 2 up for an Emmy, right? We've never run an Emmy yet, right? But we got 2 nominations, right? So we go into the Emmy, and now there's 5 nominees, but we got 2. Now, I always went in with the idea, I'm going in to lose. Right? Paramount would usually rent us a limo. I had a disc that I made up, right? I had songs on it like I'm a loser, born to lose, anything. And I put this on and I tell everybody, because we'd pick up some of the guys that were nominated, said, don't take it too seriously. It's all politics.
Yeah.
Let's go in to lose. Worst thing that can happen, we're pleasantly surprised.
Sure.
Right? Walk into the Emmy, so we're sitting around, everything's good. They come up, visual effects. Who comes out? Marina Sirtis and Michael Dorn.
No kidding.
To give the award.
They give the award. They're the president. We got 2 shots out of 5. One of us, we're going to walk away with it.
Nope.
We're born to lose, right? Don't take a chance. So they walk out. First winner is a movie called By Dawn's Early Light. Okay, well, it was a TV movie. It wasn't a TV series, so they had more money and James Earl Jones, and it was really decent, right? First. Well, we had 2 out of 5. We lost.
Right.
Marina comes up. It's a tie. There's a tie. We got another chance. And they're looking at each other. This is Michael. They couldn't have done it. They wouldn't. Would they? They
Bring
wouldn't.
them out and
Yeah. And another one goes to, and it was a thing called. It was. I can't remember the name of the show, but it was about that airplane that flew to Hawaii and the top blew off, turned it into a convertible, and it landed.
United Flight. I remember that one.
Yeah, it wasn't very good, but they won and everything.
Herbie goes to Hawaii.
People flew out of there.
Yeah, it was. So they come up and they get up, and by the way, they all come back to the table, stacking their Emmys,
right?
The winning tables, and so we're all sitting looking around the Emmys. 2 winners. Mike comes up. It's a 3-way tie. We're like, give me a break, right? What are the chances? It's 2 of us. Now we got 2 out of 3. We got a chance. We're going to win this thing, right? The third one is this artsy, crafty piece of crap. PBS special. People floating around. Yeah. Everybody won but us.
No way.
Yes.
With Marina and Michael. Give them away.
Yeah. And I got a tape of this ceremony. They sent to me. That isn't enough to do that. Everybody wins but you.
Right.
We'll give it to you on a VHS. So you can relive this every day in your living room.
Oh my God,
Play it
that's
to your
brilliant.
music.
Have you still got that CD?
Yeah, you should keep that sucker.
Yeah.
So what was the first one you
You're a
won then?
loser.
What was the first one?
It was, I can't remember. It was a TNG show, and
Where are they?
it was amazing.
Where are your
Diamies?
trophies? Yeah.
I have them spread around the house.
Yeah, like doorstops and.
When I first started at Joe Westheimer, when I got that first job, right? One of the guys that was one of our gophers that was running around there lived in the house, and his wife ended up marrying Buzz Aldrin. Anyway, I remember going over to his house, and there was an Emmy outside, all green in the garden and everything, from the lady that owned the house that we were in. Can't remember who it was. It was
How dare you?
yeah, this is an Emmy, man. You know what's out here, green, and I don't have any green ones, but
No, they're inside.
Maybe I
they're
should,
all
yeah.
inside. You're taking
Yeah.
care of them very well.
yeah, polished stuff. But I don't put them all together.
Well, you
they
can't
go.
because you can't do that. You got to
I
separate.
played chess with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're dangerous things.
What's
They
Kind
are,
of
aren't they? They're
pointy.
quite.
Well, I've never held one.
Well, come on over.
Yeah. When you're in Vegas next, I got 5 of them.
I took one to a convention once.
Did you?
Yeah, and the thing, and just let people take
Touch
pictures
it?
with it.
I was going to ask you actually, when you do conventions,
Do.
and people come up to your table, and they maybe confuse you with Ron D Moore. I have heard that you will, just to save time and
Play along.
embarrassment, you will sign as Ron D Moore. Do you charge an extra $35 for the signature?
No, I have done it a few times. I mean, anybody who knows much about Trek knows. I look nothing like Ron D. Moore. No,
I mean, literally nothing.
nothing.
Like Ron D.
No. He's
But it does happen. doesn't it?
half
People-
my.
people-
Oh yeah,
people
I
will
have had people
confuse.
put his picture. When I sign it, I always sign it the other Ron.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not disappointed. They don't. Do they walk away none the wiser, or
Usually, yeah.
None the wiser,
I've never
yeah.
had anybody, and I'm not going to make an issue of it.
And an extra 40
That
bucks.
ain't me.
Exactly. That's not my long hair.
Are you an idiot?
Yeah.
hilarious? You know,
No,
when they're flicking through with,
no, I
their,
don't
with their
have-
other Trek guests at the house. Oh, and I got Ron D. Moore.
Right.
No, you
No,
don't.
you don't. That's not.
That's
him.
the baseball player.
But better than that was I got his first paycheck.
No.
What?
No way.
Were you
Yeah.
both Ronald Moores in that time? Because
Yeah.
that was, then
Yeah.
they got quite distinctive about that, didn't they?
But I remember going up with the check, and I told him, I said, Ron, this is a freebie. There's not anybody in this town won't cash this fee.
Yeah, right.
You know?
How much was it for?
This one's free.
Exactly. Here you go, kiddo.
Next one I get, I'm keeping.
It's mine.
His story in is extraordinary, isn't he? He took a tour at Paramount and dropped off a spec script. at
He'd
the-
written a
at the-
spec
at the
script.
Gary Moore. What was the writers' building?
The Cooper.
Gary
building.
Cooper building.
Hart Buildings where the writers
Yeah,
were.
that's right. And he dropped off a spec script,
Yeah.
And months later.
and the rest is
And
history.
look where he is now.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
and
curious.
he's a good guy.
He's a great guy.
He's a good guy, and he loves Star Trek.
He does.
And that was unusual.
All right.
But he really did. He liked it. He would get it. Manny Koto was the other guy who was he was a Trek fan. And
Absolutely.
the script showed it. Everything showed it that this
I
guy had
remember
a
his
love.
first script. He came on in the Zindi season, and I remember the first time I read his first script, and was like, well, this is a good one. Who wrote this one? Manny Koto. Didn't recognize that name. I actually ran the writers' building and went, can I speak to Manny Koto?
Did you really?
Yeah. And I said, well done, mate. Welcome aboard. No disrespect to the writers at the time.
Right.
But we were, we were in our third season, and there were one or two scripts here and there that sort of bounced out. But this one, you could tell, was like this was written with passion and a new vibrancy. And God bless, as you were saying earlier before we went on camera this morning, he nearly saved our show, as it were.
Yeah.
In the fourth season.
Oh, his work. I mean, we felt it.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, each of the series had a time where a script would come along or something and change it. And, like yesterday's Enterprise was third season of TNG, and it just revitalized everybody.
Sure.
That is really something. A few shows at the very end of the first season of TNG, I think we began to see light when, who was the writer? But when we got to the last two episodes of that, suddenly there were a couple of episodes that were
Began to
just
really fly.
kicked your butt. Like, oh man, this is good. I remember the one we worked on, the last one. The name is escaping right now. It was the next to last of the first season, but we knew that it was like, God, this really should be a two-parter. It's really good, and they just need to extend that. Maurice Hurley, he was the guy who wrote it at the time. It was just brilliant. It should have been a two-parter, but at that time, Gene was still alive, and Gene didn't like two-parters.
Oh, is that right?
Right? No. The
So
only
I was
time
going to come to that. I mean, you worked with Gene, obviously, right from the get-go, didn't you?
Yeah.
Give me your impressions of the man himself, and
to me, he was a saint.
Right.
One to be able to work with him. I know the stories of Gene and working with him in the writers' room were quite different than some of us would get to it. But he impressed the hell out of me, and just little things that he would do that you'd never see later, like one of the first rap parties we went to. I remember Dan and his wife, my wife Barb, and I were sitting at a table. Right now, we didn't know Gene. He might know me from walking by as seeing me on the set with my clipboard, but he didn't know me for anything.
he was a clipboard guy.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember sitting at that first rap, right, and I believe it was at the observatory. Anyway, he made it a point to come to the table, and he talked to us like we were old friends and everything. And it's like, oh my God, he didn't have to do that.
Right.
And then once we took a tour of where they were building the space station down the coast a little ways, and Gene had set that up. And there was a bunch of us. Ron D was there, and Brannon, and Taylor. Can't think of her name. The writer.
For our time, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and Gene and all these people were there setting up this tour, and I remember somebody. I think one of the writers had a question for me or something. I yelled my name, and I went over and talked to him, and Gene heard it. And a few minutes later, he's in a wheelchair at the time, right? He comes in, Ron, how you doing? Good days, and it's like, what kind of a guy, Right. He really does that.
Were you a fan of Star Trek?
Oh, absolutely. I was in the Navy when Star Trek was on the original series. I remember carrying my little TV set up to the bridge of the ship I was on at the time. Ended up pulling up the rabbit ears and I remember watching Star Trek there.
Yeah, really.
Right. And then when I got out of the Navy and I went home, I was on my way up to Brooks to start school. And I driving up from San Bernardino, went through Hollywood, pulled off Melrose, stopped, and I still have the picture. I pulled over on Gower.
Of the Desilu.
Took a picture of that corner of the building, right? Of a poster on the side said Star Trek.
Wow.
The original series.
Really?
And I remember thinking at the time when I took the picture, I thought, it would already been canceled. But I remember thinking, gee, I would like to have been able to work on that show.
You still have that picture?
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you send that to Mark, our producer? We'd love to put that.
I'll try
up
to
as
find
part of
out.
this
Yeah,
episode.
I think
That'd be
it's kind of
great.
an odd little
If you can,
crappy picture.
that
but-
would be so cool to see. I love those
Yeah, I
old
think-
photos.
Oh, I love them. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do.
But it was, it was great, and to end up working 18 years.
So when you, did you ever get at the beginning of it that when you came on TNG? What did you think? Did you think this was just going to be a 3-series thing or a 2? I mean, did you have a sense that you would? Because you were part of a team that were there for 17 years, weren't you?
18. Yeah.
18 years.
Yeah. No, at first I didn't think it was going to last.
No.
First time I saw Patrick, to be honest, that's the captain.
Oh, really?
Old guy, you kidding me? And then
No kidding.
LeVar walks by with the goggles on, and by that time I'm ready to work on my resume. This isn't going to work, And then
Brent walks by, he's covered in silver, and you're like, I'm out of here. This is just not going to work out.
It's not, and there were a couple of scripts at the first. They're like, they're just
I gotta
trying
say,
to copy the old.
That pilot for Two Banger is like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, it made but I was dead wrong. 18 years later, and it was
Amazing.
it just went on because it got better.
You'd mentioned,
really
was it
did.
Yesterday's Enterprise? Was there a sort of, crossing the Rubicon moment where it was clear that you were onto something as opposed to feeling like the show was flailing in that first season or second?
No, I think Yesterday's Enterprise at that
that
point
it?
we were starting to get our act together. It was incredibly difficult. I'd come out of a lot of feature work before that, and I was looking at TV as kind of a way to lighten it up a little bit. When we worked on Ghostbusters, for example, if you left work 18, 19 hours into the day, you left guilty. Right?
Really?
Yeah. And this was 7 days a week, and this was every day. It was just
Bloody grueling, isn't it?
yeah. It was just unbelievable. They got to a point where they would they rented hotels across the street from where we were working. It was in the marina, and we could go and shower
Get a
and then
few
turn
hours.
around and come back over. And it was just
Was that
it was
enjoyable?
crazy. No. No, it was.
That's what I thought.
It was really, really difficult because we were last in the line, Optical.
Sure.
At that point, and you're last. Your delivery, it comes from your hands, goes into the screening room, and
Yeah, the deadline is real for you guys at that time, isn't it?
Yeah, they've already got the posters up. We're just getting started, and we're seeing the posters coming up June 15th. And it's like, what?
June 15th.
No way.
Yeah.
How's it going to do? And it's moving so slow, and it's photochemical. This stuff takes forever.
Right.
Right? You do a shot, you're not going to see it for 2 days.
Right.
And then you sit in the screen.
Can you screw it up too? Can you destroy that
my
shot
God,
quite
yes.
easily? Yeah.
one frame out, and you start over all the
Really?
And
Is it like stop go? But is it a bit like stop go animation in that respect?
it's worse.
It's even way worse.
No, if you can imagine that. I had little tricks that I would use, but one shot, because we're using dye transfer kind of elements and stuff.
Which is what?
Which means that instead of me putting up a negative or a dupe and making a print, right? Mm-hmm. I'm using color separation, which means for each piece of film, I've got to do a red pass, a green pass, and a blue pass. Each one of those have to have cover mats, mats for optical stuff, right? Because you need to, if you're going to put a spaceship on a hole, you have to put a hole for it on film.
Yeah.
Right, so you put the background up with a hole where the spaceship goes, because on a later pass, you're going to put the spaceship in that hole.
Right.
Well, what happened? Now you got another spaceship, and that spaceship's going to come in, and it's going to
Go over it.
Yeah, over it. Well, now this mat's got to pop on and off.
Yeah.
Example, here's a chandelier hanging in this room. The Spud, that little green monster in Ghostbusters, is going to fly around it. All right, well, I need to have a mat to hold out this chandelier. Right, so that when the green guy goes behind it, it can actually go behind it.
Yeah.
But now I got to take that mat away when it swings around in front of it, right? Because it can be on top of it.
That's crazy.
right? And
Are you doing this all in model work, or is this all now on a computer?
oh no! It's all on pieces of film.
It's all on just pieces.
Yeah, I have to make sure that I know all of those mats. So I got to have the mat for the hole, and I got to have a sheet that tells the cameraman it's going to put all these pieces of film together. How he's supposed to shoot this?
And you're slicing. This is you're slicing film as in the old-fashioned way.
Oh yeah. And I put these reels together, but it's complicated because
I have no
for
idea how
the
you do
main
this.
pass, I've got to have, let's see, 3 pieces of film go through, and they're going to be sandwiched with their mats. So now I've got 9 just to get the plate. Plus, I've got to have my mats, right? And now I got different kinds of mats. I got cover mats. I've got holdout mats. I got other pieces. The optical printer can bipack or tripack, meaning 3 pieces of film can go into one.
Right.
Plus, I have another head that I can put 2 more pieces of film in, right? So now I got maybe 5 pieces of film being shot onto the third one. So here's the problem.
Jesus Christ.
It just comes down.
Here's the problem.
If you've got a mat, and this mat is a holdout mat, back to the spaceship, right? It's the hole. It's going to be there. I'm going to keep it on the background, and this mat. Well, most of that mat is clear, right? You've got just this black thing on the mat, which is the spaceship. The next pass will be a clear, what they call a clear center, which is opposite. It's got a hole where the spaceship goes.
To leave it vacant.
Are you recreating another frame of film every time you do a pass, as you call it?
No, they're running back and forth on the main one.
Okay.
They'll do one pass, get it back to 0. So first pass ends up with the film with the hole. Second pass, now I've got to
fill the hole in.
You got to fill the hole
Right.
in.
But it's got to match. It's got to match exact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the camera guy's got to look in there, make sure all the mats line up, because you've got the clear center, the spaceship that's clear, and the spaceship
got to be
negative
in the right time.
go through, which is 2 right, and then back it up, and you do this for every element. And if you got something of this guy floating around the chandelier, it gets complicated.
Yeah.
So the mats are on and off. Okay, now you put it through. You made a mistake, maybe in one frame. The shot's no good anymore.
One frame.
The shot's no good.
You've got to start all over
Got to
again.
start off. But there's an additional problem. These mats, this black center mat with the spaceship on it, right? It's mostly clear. Now it's dirty.
Right.
I can't use that anymore.
You gotta make it again.
So you got to go make that again.
I got to have another one. Well, that changes the density.
must have the patience
Now
of a
I got to take
goddamn
these
saint.
pieces of film and put them all back together just so they can do a wedge.
Did you all drink a lot?
Wasn't drinks.
Just trying to stay awake.
18 hours, ladies and gentlemen. 18 hours.
Yeah, because you're dealing with this stuff at the last of the day.
It was the 80s. It was allowed.
Exactly. And it was in the budget.
Yeah, I've heard.
No, it was, coffee wasn't cutting it.
That's right.
Did
You
you learn how
guys-
to do these things in college? Like, how did you know how to do this?
No, most of it, and that's where I made the mistake in that first interview. And no, I had to kind of learn it. And it started out doing simpler stuff, right? I used to put the faces in the portholes on the Love Boat for the main title, right? So and so,
my God.
the cast. So, and
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You did the Love Boat?
it's exactly the same stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Now it's a porthole and it's black centers and you had the same kind of mat. It got way more complicated with some of these things in Ghostbusters, but it was still photochemical, still the same thing. Just putting titles on top of a scene, right? One of my favorites was a show called Chisholms, where the editor, I don't think, liked the director very much, right? So they'd send over a work print, and it'd be marked, fade on the credit here, this is the producer, faded off here, faded up here. You're putting it all together, writing it down, getting the match ready to put this through. Well, I look at the title that comes out, and I loved it. It's a Western, right? Here's the main title coming out, and towards the end of it, because the last credit always is the director, right, before the show starts, right? Horse coming down the street. horse turns around, walking away from camera, just as he whips his tail.
His ass.
Directed by.
Up comes the horse's ass.
That's awesome.
The editor won that round.
That's right. Was it a constant level of learning and relearning in your career?
On the
because
job,
you went from when you started, say, just on Star Trek alone, what you began with and what you ended with in terms of just the technology. Was it a constant learning process? Was there?
Absolutely.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it must have been.
Absolutely. And some of it was slow, but it was, to me, that's what made it exciting. We were pushing the envelope. We were
Right.
so far ahead of anybody else because nobody else was able to do it.
Right.
Which is a real advantage. If you're running a race and you're the only one in it,
Yeah, that's right.
bring on them Emmys.
Exactly. Give me a trophy. In third place, the first place winner. That's
But yeah, between photochemical, which I love, I still love it. It has its downfall. Then when we went into Star Trek, it began this. Oh man, we're doing stuff on electronically now, which is I had kind of prepped for that for a long time. We had played with it before. I had played with it before, and some of the Michael Jackson stuff we did some video and stuff. But
Is it Photoshop stuff?
Photoshop came
right,
later,
right.
and you know who. John Knoll and his brother Tom Knoll
Right.
wrote Photoshop.
Right.
And they did effects.
Right,
John Knoll's one of the ILM guys.
Right.
He was on Generations with us.
right.
what was the most significant change?
Oh, CGI by
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
And it's a curse and a blessing. To me, it's a curse. I look at movies today, and it used to be when it was more expensive and time consuming, story king, and you accent it with visual effects.
Right.
That works for me.
Right.
Sure.
Today, it's story, effects, and they may
Yes.
not even get back to the story.
Right.
And it's like,
And it's tiring.
I
do feel. I know.
just think
that's
it's
how I
way
know
too-
I'm getting old. Is that I find that's that part of filmmaking now.
The bells and whistles
the
and the
endless action and blowing up, and it's just it's meaningless to me now.
But then you
Right.
look at the really, really good work is stuff like The Last Samurai. What was the one with the guy walking the tightrope between the Twin Towers?
Oh, loved it.
You look at those things are
Documentary, yeah.
there's visual effects
Man
all
on a
over,
tight
Sure.
line,
but you're not aware you're looking at them.
No.
That to me is beauty. Those are the ones that I think need the award, not Marvel crap.
sure.
Right? It's
Yeah,
finesse.
They're
It's
applauding-
storytelling.
It is.
Yeah, they're applauding just the bigger the effect now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Rather than the use of the effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they get carried away. And I think it goes back to when, to me, and my personal opinion, but when Lucas redid the Star Wars.
All right.
Yeah.
Suddenly, there's no spaceship in that sector. Let's get one in there. Let's
Right.
get one in there.
So needlessly putting stuff in.
That they just
Right.
didn't need. I think one of the
You
beauties.
worked on Star Wars, right? Didn't
No,
you?
no.
Oh, you did not?
No.
Okay, I mistook that.
No, I'm more of the Big Trouble, Little China, and
Right.
all the
Nice.
the boss stuff. And but the beauty of Star Trek, I think, is making that transition to electronics and what we were able to do because of Paramount making that decision of not having a negative. Just opened a whole new world for us.
Was that an issue for us for our show that because we started to use CGI, it got expensive, didn't it? And our budget, our show started to get. I mean, I heard they were $2 to $3 million an episode.
Yeah, but that was, Star Trek was an expensive show anyhow.
Right.
But I honestly feel that I would have rather seen, I think in some ways, honestly, we got lazy in that we had our systems worked, we knew how everything did, but we were still working like we did when we started this,
Right.
and we were creating a whole new way of doing things.
Right.
We were pushing the envelope. We were creating what was new.
And I think Rick felt that we had a built-in audience that were just going to stay. And I guess the other thing we never factored in was that the network was floundering so badly.
Yeah.
And
I think those things came in, but I would have liked to see a push show wide. Let's tighten the belts. Let's see if we can. We've been doing this 18 years now. Can't we find a more efficient way to work?
Sure.
All right. Did you ever bring that up in meetings or?
Never occurred to me, and that was the problem.
Right.
Because why? Everybody's happy the way it's working. We're comfortable with it, and CG meant we worked a lot less time than we were earlier on. We were still shooting models and all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Rob Legato told me one time in TNG, I've never worked with anybody who quit as often as you had.
Really?
Well, the reason was I'd come out of that Ghostbusters and 2010 and all of that stuff where, you're killing yourself.
Yeah.
Trying to put this stuff out.
Right.
And then come into Star Trek where I expected to kind of back off a little bit, and it was the same thing.
More and more.
7 days a week. And it's like, I can't keep up with this. Because when it was just the three of us, we would have had 6 shows at once.
Jeez.
And it's just like, I know that one early show got through and TNG, and I never saw a frame of it. I didn't even know how it got finished. It was Rob and Gary managed to do it. We were just so nuts, but it was 7 days a week. And
how did your lovely wife Barbara put up with all this? She's here, by the way.
yeah,
So answer carefully.
She did indeed. It was.
Bless her. She
end
was just
of
was a techno widow.
No, absolutely. And there was a lot of them. I remember one night when I worked at Boss after Ghostbusters, after all the time, Richard Lennon was very nice, wrote up this wonderful letter apologizing to the wives and things,
Really?
and sent it out. And, I thought that was really nice. Well, we had this.
Did it come with a check?
No. Below the line. Son.
Yeah, that's right.
No, but there was this one guy that worked for us was very eccentric, to say the least, and his wife, Mad Dog.
That was the name.
His wife, Mad
Mad
Dog.
Dog. That's what he always called her, Mad Dog. And
What a peach. What a peach.
they eventually divorced. But anyway, Mad Dog, the name said it.
That's awesome.
So they have this rap party, right?
Mad Dog 1 and
this letter goes out in flowers and stuff to the wife. It's going to be really nice, right? And Mad Dog takes it because she ain't buying any of that. And she goes right up to her, you son of a bitch, and just yelling in front of everybody. He's a gentleman, just Taryn took it. But
Oh, my Lord.
I never saw him at all. He was always here, and I didn't see him.
You're married to him. I'm not married to him.
And I forgot to mention Mad Dog and the kids, Flipper and Dipper.
What?
after the Australian show. I mean, little jest. But
Like I said, there were drugs at that time, so who knows what was going on.
Our
Right.
dear first AD, Jerry Fleck, who passed
I
away.
love Jerry. God,
I mean, minutes before his retirement.
Yeah.
Who'd given his life to Paramount.
Yeah, what a great guy.
And I remember being at the memorial service and just how angry his wife was. That they were brutal hours. Our crew worked, not to bring this down, but
No, it's true.
they were brutal. They were 80 to 100-hour weeks sometimes.
Yeah. Not for us,
No,
but for
not
them.
for us.
Yeah.
And we might work, I mean, even if we work 60 hours a week, or, I mean, Scott might have done some 70-hour weeks, but a lot of that time spent in a very plush trailer.
Yeah,
right, right.
Watching Judge Judy.
Right.
That would always be my answer when they came knocking on the door. I'll be right there. There's a very important case on Judge Judy.
No, it was brutal.
But yeah, movie making is a very, hard-working game. And
But what I found hard was that when you'd get to a point where those hours didn't happen for the crew, on the stage crew, it would upset them.
well, they liked the overtime.
The overtime,
They
yeah.
did.
Sure.
They all
I
had
didn't get it
extensions.
myself, but
What?
no.
Huh?
No overtime. No.
No.
Wait. Just because you were salaried?
No kidding, dude.
Whoa.
Holy
No,
smokes.
I got no complaints. But,
Sure.
That's
they
tough to
treated
hear.
me well, and I really have no
but
problem. But
nevertheless,
that was just one of the
it
deals
can be
that
mean, man. I mean, studios can be mean. The whole business can be mean like that. They'll screw the PA out of $50.
Sure.
know. I know.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
No, it's
Before we get on to fan questions, something that I've noticed of your work specifically, and I was excited for you to be here to talk about it, is since the Star Trek shows have moved on to streaming platforms, you can now see the mat where the ship flies across screen. You can see the mat around it digitally. That's not something you could see on the DVDs. It's not something you could see when it broadcast. It's like, it's your work. Is that something that bothers you? Is there a reason that's happening?
Are we talking about the new transfers?
Yeah.
That have come through? Yeah, I didn't have much to do with that. There's no excuse nowadays for a mat line at all.
It really isn't. No.
No. I mean, it's conceivable that we may have had something early with the models, but we look at it so closely that
that would just drive me crazy.
I'm not a big fan of some of the redoing that they're doing when they've gone back. Sometimes they had no choice. Yeah. We made maybe I should do it. I made some choices early on in Next Generation that bit them bad. And I told them when I did it why I was doing it and that it was going to bite them. But it had to do with the philosophy. And my philosophy was I wanted to make the best TV show that I could. I wanted everything to look as good as it could for TV. Mm-hmm. And so when I did visual effects, I did them at 30 frames a second.
Yeah.
Right? And it made them work in pretty good because if you did the effects at 24, which the rest of the show was in, 24 frames a second, you get a steppiness.
Yeah.
You'll see a spaceship flying in overhead or something, and it'll give you a little bit of a jump. And you'll notice that on Rob's shows. Now, I'm not saying it's negative that he did it at 24. His take on it was that the rest of the shows at 24 frames a second,
sure,
our effects should be 2 to make them cut in nicely. Right? Valid. A good point, and probably the smarter choice. My choice was no, I want it to be as smooth as it can for TV. That's what we're making this for. Well, that all worked fine up until they wanted to make these transfers and start to redo it for 4K and do it. Now they ran into a problem that time-wise it doesn't work. Right, because if you take the 3.2 out, it's a different length, right? And I had 30, you can't put 32 in it. I'd explained that problem would come up, but my take on it was, but let's not worry about that. Let's worry about the TV show right now.
Yeah.
And I think that bit them, and I think things like that make flaws like that come out a little bit more. They had to go back and redo a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
Another thing that we did wrong initially is a lot of the elements that we used. We'd shoot it with a video camera or something or film, whatever. And it could be, glitter. It could be mud. It could be a vibrator with some water. We had a pom-pom that was in every episode we ever did that we shot this Mylar pom-pom. And, we'd manipulate it. Well, when you shot it on film, we'd transfer it and it would have 3.2 in it. And so we'd do some early compositing. This is very early in Next Generation, where we put multiple elements, right? We have the pom-pom, and in this case, maybe the pom-pom is going to be where the phaser's hitting. So you got the phaser coming down, you got this pom-pom, generally that's the hit point. Then you've got more pom-pom, that's the shield around it. So all of these things going on, as well as animation and stuff on top of it. Well, the 3.2s may not have matched. That's a cardinal sin. Well, we didn't know. We were just kind of getting started at the time. We should have known, but we didn't.
Now let's not
consider
forget the Planet Dog shit.
That's right.
But eventually we went through and we corrected all of that stuff, took 3.2 out and worked with it. But things like that did, I think, hurt it. One of the things that bothered me too is there was an episode, I was a surf music fan, and Dick Dale was a guitar player I admired, and I had a chance to get some of his music in an early episode of Next Generation, Vis-a-Vis. Oh, it's in Voyager, sorry. And so it opened, and I found out Dennis McCarthy was a Deltone, had played with Dick Dale before.
Oh.
But anyway, they put this music in, it opened the show, and it closed the show. Because Dennis had one, I'd got one in the opening, he got a song in the end. Well, the other day, for some reason, I wanted to watch that, and I pulled it up to stream it, and there was generic surf music on it.
Oh, they.
And I realized, oh my God, and I went back and pulled out the DVD, and the DVD's correct. I realized because of the negotiations, they didn't get the rights.
Right.
They couldn't stream it.
Right.
They never negotiated the stream. So things get changed when they go to the streaming thing.
All right.
too.
Right.
And it may not be exactly the same. That's just something I happened to notice because it was a personal thing. But
Yeah.
all right, enough with you guys. Do we got any real questions coming in?
Even from the fans.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Well,
Look
sure.
at that. We got told. Hey, look, I don't understand.
They better be good.
Any more than the next guy.
We've had enough of you, Stinky.
Stinky.
That's the
Yes, we have fan
One.
questions. All right, here we go. Mars from Patreon asks, how much has the growing use of virtual sets disrupted your work, positive or otherwise?
It's changing business, I think. It makes it so much easier. I think one of the problems that I had with Next Generation or Enterprise, all of them, was you guys would have questions that I couldn't answer, and I had to fake it. What am I looking at?
Sure.
What's going on over there? And I haven't got a freaking clue. We haven't figured this out yet.
Right.
Where am I supposed to be?
It's a shit planet.
I remember you and I being on a teeter-totter one time. Do you remember we were floating in space?
I do.
And I had no freaking idea what I was doing.
But you thought I did, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And every time Jan had to hold up that stick with a orange X on it, and it was like, you're talking to this guy.
Yes, look over here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, you guys could never aim a phaser or something, right? Why you come up and you're doing it now?
You were the worst phaser actor I've ever worked with.
No, I was a purist because I
Some of them
would.
were But with the virtual set, to get back to the question, you can see what's going on. So it's better for the actors and it's better for us, and we can tweak stuff afterwards. But you're on the bridge and you actually see the view screen. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Or you're
that's
seeing
very
things
cool.
that are out there.
Right,
There's disadvantage of it's nice for us to have more time to develop some of these monsters and things and not be tied into it so early. But if there's pre-production time, it makes it better for everybody. I think it makes a more realistic show. I think it's brilliant.
Awesome.
We tried to do things like that back on Enterprise, but we were just a little too early. It was a little too
Technology
expensive.
wasn't quite there.
Yeah, and time-consuming and expensive for us
Super
to do
expensive,
it.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was time. It's like motion control. I was the only one on the shows that did on-stage motion control, and it was kind of a curse. The shots came out; they were fun, they were great, but walk on the set and everybody hated me because
I meant this.
I had 2 clipboards.
Yeah.
Two babies.
Costly visual expense.
Exactly. No, you love walking into the set and just, oh, shit. Here's visual effects.
Why is the room all white?
Yeah. Brad Jacobian's ass used to pucker out.
It's like, oh, crap. Here are these guys again.
All right, next question. Tarina Pickett from Patreon asks, which series was the most fun to work on visuals-wise?
Be very careful.
Which series was the most fun to work on visuals-wise?
Oh, that's a loaded question. No, I'd say actually Enterprise, and I'll give you the reason for it, is that the tone on the set for Enterprise was the most pleasant working of any of the shows that I worked on.
Really?
Scott set a tone, and everybody, there's exceptions, but everybody was pretty easy going, and we had a lot of fun.
I came from the RSC, and I tell you how things are done.
But when the shows had a pompous Brit,
That's amazing.
I had Sir Patrick's pomposity in my turn-ups, let me tell you.
no, I think
We did have a lovely turn on our set.
it was really
Yeah.
good. I think Next
We were
Generation
so
was
lucky.
absolutely
We really were.
It really were, and it was just such a pleasant atmosphere anytime you went over
really
there.
was.
Sometimes I'd walk onto I didn't work on it much, but whenever I'd walk onto the deep space set, it would just be cold, and I just feel it when I
know,
walked
I
in. It
heard
was
that.
just and I don't know what it was. Not working there, I I wouldn't. TNG was
They didn't laugh.
fun in the sense that it was
I've
running.
been told.
I
They
can't
just
imagine.
didn't. There was no laughter.
I never saw it.
We laughed
All the
asses
time.
off all the time.
Yeah.
There were some days I didn't know how we were going to get the scenes out. I mean, those scenes on the bridge. God bless Scott.
Yeah.
He had reams of stuff to say, and Anthony and me would have a couple of the aft guns are down, sir, and we'd just be fucking
The
around.
aft guns are
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm making, but we'd have nothing to do but just muck about. He never once turned to us,
No.
not a one time, and said,
Nobody turned to us.
he loved it, and he just made the.
Well, he also has this skill as an actor where he can be just chit chat, action, boom,
boom, and he had it.
and he could do that, and I don't have
No, Kate was like that.
I don't have
skill set.
No facial,
When I'm laughing, I'm going to continue laughing.
no facial skills.
That's right.
Yeah. Kate was like that too. She was just.
That's what I heard.
She would
yeah.
miss her line. She'd always hit her spot. She was just so
She
professional.
never screwed up.
Patrick had an ability to freeze like I've never seen anybody freeze. You know what I mean? You get to a point and I want you to freeze right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And freeze. Patrick, my God, the camera would keep running and you'd put something in. It's like, God dang, he didn't move at all.
It's the training from England.
Yeah, I guess.
It's the spear holding.
It is. Yeah. Don't move.
Don't move.
Don't you move.
If you move,
You're fired.
My favorite shot of all of that was it was like one of the shots where the director just carried away again. We had a thing budget-wise, right? You can walk into a transporter or you can walk out of a transporter, but you don't walk in, transport, and walk out, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because it complicates it in the middle for us. More notes on the clipboard, you know?
Right, right.
It's like, oh. So I had the director, he had to have it both ways, right? And I'm like, you can't do it, please don't have to do it, and get Rick on the phone, and Rick says it's okay. And I do Rick, I don't see Rick here, but I got overdone. Anyway, so we shot the thing. But anyway, in order to shoot this, it was Patrick. And I come up to Patrick and I say, okay, Patrick, here's what I need you to do to make this work. I want you to come over, walk in here. And when I tell you, I need you to drop on your knees. All right. Idea would he'd drop out of camera and give me a chance to do it. And I get this. Ron, I don't go on my knees.
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
imagine I'm Salati.
But what he was saying was Captain Picard doesn't go on his knees, right? And when I explained to him, okay, it's simple. Go on your knees and we're going to get this shot. Don't go on your knees. We're going to be here another hour. You know?
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah, exactly. And trust me, Captain Picard will not be down on his knees.
Right.
Then boom, boom, and it worked. I got carried away. I don't really answer your questions very well.
No, you do. You do a great job. Travis Early from Patreon asks, were there any VFX techniques in the original series that survived unaltered into later iterations of Trek?
But pretty much a lot of them. Actually, I mentioned earlier we had this Mylar pom-pom that
fascinating. Yeah,
Dan came up with early in TNG, and that I believe was in probably every episode of every series that Dan and I ever worked on. You know, because it was phasers, it was force fields, it was shields on the ship, you name it, we just used it. A lot of the techniques that we developed, some of them got easier, some of them didn't. I remember in Enterprise in the pilot, Scott came up to me once and asked what the most complicated effect was that we had done in the pilot. And I said it was a transporter.
Oh.
And he's like, what? You know, you've been doing these things for
More than the
40
butterflies
years.
and
Yeah, that's what was it. But what it was is there was one shot that the director wanted where Scott was transported while he was running towards the camera.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that-
transported by
that-
surprise.
Yeah, and that that was quite complicated to go through with it. And it was very hard to get that because now we had to track all
Frames and
these
frames and
various
frames.
elements and stuff, which I thought was very unusual. Techniques were the same, but complicated. I always thought, you've been doing this 18 years. You'd think with a new script, you'd just, there's just
Knock it out.
more of this. And,
Right.
but there's very rare when I get a script and there's something I say, oh, crap,
How are we going to do that?
Yeah.
How did you do that running to the was that what screen? Are you putting a green screen behind him or?
No, we use it. We have a clean plate, but the problem was that normally, the elements for the transporter are 2D, and here we needed it to track forward with him, so it'd have to grow and everything. So we had to frame by frame animate
Oof.
Oh, wow.
things that normally we wouldn't have to do. It's just more time consuming and becomes complicated. Most of the other stuff, the butterfly girls, who doesn't enjoy working with the butterfly girls?
I don't know about that.
Still a lasting impression.
Until you remember, we shot that in the sewer.
We did.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I
God.
was so hungover
I was so
that day.
Nothing
We'd
like
been to a big party at Paramount the night before. It was for the European sales, and him and John Billingsley got absolutely mullered.
and
Mullered to the point where they were stealing bottles of booze off the bar.
I thought I was going to be fired that
And
day.
he did. He thought he was going to get fired.
I thought I was going to be
Getting calls
fired.
from Rick Berman.
We had the day, and we're like 7 floors down in this former
It was in the
sewage
sewer.
plant.
No, I think it was a working sewage plant.
Yeah, it was.
Was it still at the time? Well, it sure smelled like it.
Brand new.
was-
And
like hell.
I did the whole day, and I in the back of my mind, I was like, man, that was probably a dumb move to steal that booze. And I get home, and there's a phone call from McBurman, who never called me. Obviously we're 2 weeks into the shooting, and I was like, God damn it, I'm going to get fired for stealing liquor. And he
They
calls.
literally, they had Max, and you could hear them clinking out the front door at Paramount.
Bottle clank.
Yeah, clink, clink.
Yeah. On the way home, Billings is like, why don't you take the liquor? I was like, okay, great. But I get home, Berman's on the phone, and he goes, hey, buddy. And I thought, all right, that's better. So my name on the show was Spike for the first couple of weeks. But then they realized that Buffy, Angel, whatever it was at that
they
point,
had
also
Spike.
had a Spike,
Spike,
and I couldn't be a Spike. So he's like, yeah, an old college friend of mine, has a son who's the third, and they call him Trip. Your new name's Trip. I'm on my knees. I'm nearly on my knees at this point, begging not to get fired. And he's like, "We've changed your name to Trip." And I was like, "That's it?
That's the coolest name ever.
Oh my God! I'll see you tomorrow."
I'll drink to that.
Exactly. You like Jim Beam? I got a couple of bottles of it.
You can call me Jack.
Yeah.
Really funny.
Dumb moves.
Okay.
What times we had.
What times we had.
Giannine Lewis from Patreon asks, how did your work on Battlestar Galactica compare to your work on Star Trek? What were the unique challenges for each franchise?
To be honest, between the two shows, Battlestar Galactica was the other run. I didn't have anything to do with it.
But you signed the photo though?
We
were not-
you. Shit.
No, that's Ron D.
Not
Ron D did the
involved.
new Battlestar.
Yes, I thought I was going to say.
I didn't know that you were part of that.
When we got the question, I thought, it would make sense that
You
Ron
were-
would move over and do some of the effects on that show because so many Star Trek people went over there.
No, actually, Gary Hutzel
There you go.
went over and did the effects on the show.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't know. But if Dan comes in, he worked on the original.
No, he didn't.
He did.
Did he really?
Yeah. Okay, well, that'll be interesting.
Wow.
Because I thought, you mean the original? Because I
No,
didn't.
but I like getting that in to plug for Ron D.
An extra $75.
Sadly, his check was in an envelope, so I don't know. I think what it was better than what I got. Below the line again.
Okay. Jamie Friend 12 from Instagram asks, what is your favorite Starship design?
Romulan Warbird. I love that ship.
Wow.
With the opening, and it was just beautiful. The model was fun. And that was back to before CG, when you could actually touch the models,
Sure.
look at them and walk around them and take a camera and see. There was a certain beauty.
What sort of
to them.
size were they? Were they with the actual models?
Maybe 4 feet.
Right.
You'd have
Right.
pretty good sized ship. We wanted I liked that ship because I could take the camera through it
Right.
and stuff, use a snorkel lens and things. It was just
And how were they?
fun
Were they
show.
made? Were they made of clay to start with?
no, we usually fiberglass, and they'd have
right.
armatures, metal armatures, and it depends on the ship. If it was a hero ship, like
Right.
Enterprise or something, it would be heavy with neon lights, various lights. And to shoot like the original Enterprise, it took 7 passes of motion control. We'd shoot the warp lights, we'd shoot the window lights, we'd shoot the beauty pass, and then go in and composite them all together.
Right.
Wow.
Our friend Charlie, who we've cruised with on the cruise check,
Yeah.
didn't his dad
He built the original.
the original one? No kidding, isn't that great? Amazing. Yeah.
Who was the guy on Enterprise who did the artwork on for the show? I asked that because I forget his name. I went up one day early on and asked just to see some of the drawings. And God bless him, he printed all of them and gave them to me,
That's right. You've got
which I have. I've got the whole.
Was that Rick Sternbach?
Don't know.
Could be Rick or Doug Drexler, maybe. Mike Akuda. Dougie?
Yep. Yeah.
Good guy, Doug. Yes.
Great guy. I've got. I have all of them.
Yeah.
And it's Jasper's
I
college
believe Doug
tuition.
is still working on. I think he's still with Star Trek. I think he's still working on Picard recently.
Oh, really?
With the Akudas and.
They're still working on it.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Have you been watching some of the new stuff?
Some of them I have.
just-
To me, when I started watching Discovery, personally, it seemed like they were pushing too much towards Star Wars rather than Star. It didn't feel like Star
Me
Trek.
too. I think that's a
New
general.
World seems to be more Star Trek,
Yes.
and
Coming
I
back.
kind of enjoyed getting back into that.
The first 2 seasons of Picard have had a real Star Wars feel to it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like seeing all the guys back together and everything, but to me, it isn't really Star Trek.
No. Yeah, I hear that.
All right, last question. Well, it's Riles from Instagram asks, what was the most difficult VFX to do on Star Trek, and how long did it take to film and edit?
Well, of all of Star Trek, there was a show, can't recall the name offhand, with Geordi on TNG, where there were a lot of shadows and things that were thrown onto a wall. I guess the concept of it was that Geordi was going down to a planet where some people had gone missing, and he had to solve this mystery. So he goes down to the planet surface and he recreates on the holodeck all of these characters to try to decide what was going on. So he had all of these characters around.
Like a detective.
Where does the shadow come
Yeah,
from?
and the shadows all were showing back on a wall. Then one by one, he'd remove them, and the shadows would go away. And when all of the people went away, the one shadow was the monster.
Wow.
Right, and then he used the computer to say, okay, based on that shadow, what is the monster? And the monster came up, right? And then this guy beams out. Well, the night we shot that, I visual effects, clipboard, they see me coming. They're half an hour away, Ron. Well, this was Friday night. You know what that means.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
it's Saturday morning.
6
I'm still a half an hour away at about 2 a.m. I'm sitting over in a rock. Finally, they come up and they're ready for my shot. It's about 2:30 and they start setting it up. Rick Colby was the director. And I had gone down the weekend because I knew this was a complicated shot. And I asked my wife and some friends went, I said, let's stage this. Let's just walk through it. I haven't got time. So we get to the set. I'm sitting on the rock. They set it all up. I'm looking at it. And the first thing, it's like, this isn't going to work. And what starts to go through my mind is, how am I going to fix it? All right?
It's 3 o'clock.
And I
in the
start
morning,
thinking
man.
myself, how am I going to fix this? I'm thinking in post. well, maybe if I split the screen here and I do this. Finally, I'm sitting there. I've been sitting here for like 10 hours, a half an hour away from this frickin' shot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sit here and let them shoot it wrong? No. And I stood up and said, hold it.
Nice.
This isn't going to work.
Awesome.
They look at you.
The director's looking at me. LeVar walks over.
And Rick Colby, we worked with him one time.
Yeah.
Not a funny man.
He pretty much looked at me, asshole, and walked out.
Right.
Pretty much. LeVar walks over, goggles up. You mean we're going to have to start this over again? Yes. David Livingston, who was the line producer at the time, walks up. One day, you're going to have to come into my office and explain this to me. But it's your call. And he walks out.
Everybody walks out.
It gets really severe.
Yeah, and I don't think Marvin was the DP
Not
at
the
the
DP
time.
at that
That was the
time?
other guy, but I can't think of his name, with a really nice guy. Anyway, we got down and I started moving things around to get it to work. Very important, because as each of these people vanished, they had to walk out. And I had to choreograph this thing right. Right? Anyway, I finally got it set up. LeVar was the first one to come over because he watched. He didn't leave. He watched. He saw what was going on. He came up and said, okay, I see what you're doing.
Had
And
he
you were,
directed by this time?
Yeah,
Yeah, so he
and-
had more than a rudimentary understanding of what was going
So
on.
I understand, and you were right to do this. I get it, which is surprising because it was very complex, right? Anyway, get through this thing and finally get it set up, and it did take an hour and a half late at night, so I wasn't
4 in
making
the
any.
morning
I wasn't making any friends. Anyway, we shot it. What had happened though? I got all this worked out, and the camera gets up, all these things finishes. The camera does a pan to a guy that's, I can't remember, beams in or beams out, right? That's the end of the shot. So we get through very complicated, all this choreography that goes off, it works. I'm happy with it, goes over. And the transporter, which we do transfers, how can you screw up a transporter, Ron? Right? I screwed it up.
Oh, no.
But I didn't say anything. I just couldn't. This is back.
You let that
Okay,
go.
how am I going to fix it in post? Because what had happened was it was kind of like with Scott running, not quite as complicated as Scott running towards the camera, but the camera was moving as the guy's beaming. And you should have come over and steadied, and then the guy beamed out. But I remember being in the edit bay and telling the editor, don't you tell anybody. We're going to sit here till this is perfect. And you don't tell anybody how much money we're spending. Don't say anything.
That's right.
That's actually a great episode. That episode. It's,
It was
you guys
my-
did a similar one. It's Jordy went on an away mission many years ago when he was like a young ensign, and everyone on that away mission had started disappearing, and they were trying to figure
That's
out
it.
what had happened back on this planet years ago that's making them disappear. Turns out they were all turning into whatever native species was on the planet. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
a good
what
episode.
Mark and Brian, the two radio disc jockeys, were in that episode. It was really.
Oh, Mark and Brian, the morning show.
I really enjoyed working on that episode too. But the ones that got me in TNG is I loved it when they would take the blind guy and make him go up against the invisible entity.
Right.
It's like made so much sense to me. It's like that is so cool. Well, how can you get better than that?
Right.
Yeah, I still have a little model of the lizard monster from that show on an action figure I have on my desk.
What other bits and bobs have you got from the years? Have you got a little trove?
Just a lot of crap. We're at the age now, I'm trying to get rid of a lot of the stuff that came up. But
Bring it to Vegas.
Do you do the conventions much?
when they invite me, I
Yeah.
try to go to them. I've been to Vegas a few times. I love the cruises that
Yes.
you go on.
We've cruised together on Cruise Track with Charlie.
And they're nice because they're small. you
They
know,
are. They're
it's
lovely, aren't they?
Very intimate and have been since
Yeah.
I went on their first one.
Yeah. Did you really? That was
Mm-hmm.
the because they used to do big ones, didn't they? They used to fill full boats, didn't they? When they first
Oh, yeah.
started. Yeah. Now it's much more intimate, but I enjoy them too.
Yeah, I think the I don't know if it's crazy. The new Star Trek cruises, the big ones, kind of take it. But to me, it's kind of like the difference between doing a big convention like a creation thing, right? Where everybody's you're going to have Kirk and Patrick and everybody coming in, versus the fan conventions, which are a little bit more intimate and more friendly, and you really get to know people a little bit more.
Family sort of feel. He does the big ones. I do the little ones.
You still get that same sense though. After a couple of days, everybody kind of starts to relax, and you're on it together. And I do enjoy them. They're nice.
I think one of the things I've noticed is a lot with the little guys is that years go by. I mean, some of the people that they met on the cruises, they've been so intimate that John or George or so they still know people that they met 10 years ago, and they'll know them by name. It's like, wow, I can't imagine that happened on a.
It's a unique thing.
Are we going to go to trivia first? All right, let's do trivia. So it's going to be us three against the Oracle Mark.
Oh my God, Mark!
Yes, and we have
we've done well lately. We've done well
you guys
lately.
have been winning.
We've done well lately.
One thing I want to say something right now. I was talking to my parents this morning, and when I left, so we interviewed me last week, and we aired it on Sunday, and the stuffed animal, the dog that I still have, was not called Rufus. His name is Smokey.
No.
I know.
We got to reshoot.
We got to redo the whole thing.
Lies.
My parents watched it on Sunday, and I spoke with them this morning, and I was like, I screwed up. I got the name wrong on my own dang stuffed animal.
Okay. Are you guys ready for some Star Trek trivia?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
We're doing well lately.
We are doing well lately.
You three against producer Mark.
Cheating. That's
There's no
doing well 'cause
cheating.
you're cheating.
Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
We are playing for Patreon member Charlie Castleman. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Wish us the best of luck.
That's right.
Question number 1. In Star Trek The Next Generation episode Hallowed Pursuits, what nickname does Wesley Crusher give to Lieutenant Reginald Barclay as an inside joke due to his nervousness and perceived ineptness? A. Scaredy Cat. B. Baldy. C. Broccoli. D. Lieutenant Nobody.
Looks like you got the green ones. You know
C. Broccoli.
Broccoli, you knew it.
Oh.
Good job.
Good job.
No idea.
Question
Good on
number
you,
2.
Ronnie.
All righty. Hey.
In Star Trek Voyager, Lieutenant Tom Paris recreates a pool hall on the holodeck, which appears in many episodes throughout the series. Where was the original pool hall located?
I know.
A. Chicago. B. New York. C. Los Angeles. D. France.
I thought I had that.
Oh, too late. I got it. It's France. It's in Marseille.
Yeah.
It's in Marseille.
Really?
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just
No
seen it.
clue.
Did you know that?
I did. I knew that.
Really?
yeah.
No
Jeez.
clue.
Okay. Question number 3. In Star Trek Enterprise, the NX-01 Enterprise was Earth's first ship capable of warp what? A. 4. B. 5. C. 6. Or D. 10.
That would be warp 5.
Damn, I had that
Yep.
too.
Karate chop. Mine doesn't work.
Karate chop.
I think mine
Oh,
works.
you must have gotten mine.
Yeah.
And what is it? 8 where you turn into a
5.
lizard?
You turn into a lizard at
8 or
10.
9?
What?
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 Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Paris turned into a lizard going.
On at warp 9 or 10?
Yeah.
It was on Voyager.
What's the score?
He was going more than 10. That's what it
2-1.
was, yeah.
2-1 to Mark.
Yeah, all right. Question number 4. In the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode Hard Time, how long is Chief O'Brien imprisoned in his mind? A. 5 years. B. 10 years. C. 20 years. Or D. 30 years.
Help. Help. Help.
Nice.
20?
I want it in his mind. I mean, it's a full guess, this. Do you think 5 sounds enough?
What are our options? 5, 10, 20?
Yeah.
5, 10, 20, 30.
Do you know?
My gut tells me 10.
Go on then. I'll go with 10.
10.
5.
It's
What is it?
I believe it's 30. Is it
Wrong.
20?
It's 5.
It's
20.
C20. You were right when you first guessed.
Did we say 20? Oh, no, it's 20. All right, so we're still
Okay.
2-1.
Still 2 to
Boy,
1.
we are good.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
What was the name of the planet that James T. Kirk was killed on in the movie Star Trek Generations? A. Viridian 2, B. Viridian 3, C. Alpha Centauri Prime, D. Kronos. Ooh.
Help.
I
Kronos?
like what was the third one?
C. Alpha Centauri Prime.
I like that.
You like that
You like the
sound?
sound of
how
that?
that sounds?
I just don't think it's the Viridians.
I'm all good with that.
There were 2 Viridians, Alpha Centauri, and what was the last one?
Kronos.
Well, Kronos is
I think it's Alpha Centauri. I've seen
I'm
that
all
movie
with you.
recently.
Final answer.
Yeah.
Yes,
Final
3.
answer. Nuts.
Shut up.
None of those sound right. This is Generations,
Viridian
right?
2, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yes.
Wow. Do we get another go?
No.
No, it's B. Viridian 3.
Oh, Viridian
Oh, Viridian 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Charlie.
Sorry, Charlie. We did the
We did
best we
our
could.
best.
I got one in a row.
Yeah.
Connor
Right.
just had the wrong.
Yeah, mine was broken.
Barkley.
Well, you get a car.
You do. It's about that big.
All right.
And this week we want to thank Zach and Chris from the Random Red Shirt podcast for putting together our trivia. So thank you guys. You're
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thank you.
Guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was quite difficult. I could tell that was a nerdy put together. Trust me, I know when it's nerdy.
And I believe now
That was top nerd.
we are going to Stuck on a Deserted Island with Connor Trinneer.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. You are allowed, it's grown now. You're on a deserted island for the rest of your life. You are given the Bible and the works of Shakespeare. I do think that we should include any other religious work if so desired by people.
Oh, how woke.
Yeah. It's a woke episode.
Look at that. This island's getting woke.
That's right. So,
Will you get
Include
complaints?
the works of Richard Dawson. Dawkins?
anybody.
Okay.
Well, this is it. So he's going to
So
ask you.
here's the deal. You are allowed 4 items plus one other. Your author, their complete works. For dessert, if it's ice cream, it's all ice cream. If it's pie, it's all pies. Your cuisine, French,
Mexican,
Italian, Mexican, and your music. You get the complete works of whoever you choose. And then you get one other item at the end.
We're calling it a luxury item.
It's a luxury item.
It doesn't get you off the island.
It's not a TV. It's not a boat. Mine, for instance, is a machete, so that I could, in theory, make
In case
everything.
Dan shows up.
It's a pencil. I just want a pencil. All right. So what's your author? Who's your author?
Probably Stephen King.
Good.
Well done.
Not the first.
Yeah, not the first. It's a great choice.
Yeah.
Your cuisine.
Sushi.
No kidding.
Look at you.
Yeah, look at you. Yeah.
That's easy on that island. Your music.
That's a tough one. Pink Floyd.
No kidding.
nice.
Good choice.
Nice. What do I have left? Dessert.
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 What dessert would you take
What I
with you?
want is a dessert.
For the rest of your life.
A maple donut.
A maple donut.
A maple donut.
Okay.
Interesting.
Man.
Look at that. I love it. And the luxury item. All the coffee. you
A
can
real hard-ass jazz master guitar.
drink. Oh, lovely, man.
Oh.
Do you
Nice.
play?
I play.
You play enough?
I don't play
What a
well.
good answer. I also play.
I have no talent whatsoever, but I have played Vegas. Who can say that?
Really? Why a jazz master?
It's just my favorite guitar.
Is
I'm a
it?
big surf music fan.
I don't really know what a jazz master guitar is.
So the Fender makes a Tele, a Strat, and a jazz master.
They're
And
It's
a
electric.
Jaguar.
And
A Jaguar, which is
Jaguar.
a little higher end of a jazz master.
the jazz master has some dials on it that makes it.
It has a lead and a rhythm section, so you can flip a switch and play.
So we're going to let you have a generator to make some electricity
And
to
an
play
amp.
this thing.
No,
and
it
an
comes.
amp.
It
Yeah,
comes with
okay.
its stuff.
Well, have you ever seen Gilligan's Island? Yeah, you've got to ride your bike
Yeah.
to make that thing work.
Ride and play, right?
Ride and play, ride and play.
This island's getting stuck.
It's ridiculous. Listen, my parents were here for my birthday weekend, and my God, the conversations around what's allowed and not allowed on this island. It used to be such a simple game. People have lots of opinions about it. Well,
it.
that means it works.
Exactly.
Well, Ron, it's been an absolute joy having you, mate.
For me as well.
It really
Yeah,
has.
thank
I'm
you
so
so
glad you
much.
came
What
I
a
in.
miss working with you guys all the time. That
Oh,
was great.
likewise.
We had some good times.
You know, it's a fascinating afternoon to hear you talk about and tell what your role was on this show that we did.
Yeah.
And much of it I didn't know because you were just standing on your...
Yeah.
Now, if I'm right in remembering, you wrote a book about all this remembrance, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's titled The
Flying Starships
Flying Starships. Still available on
on Amazon.
On Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, there's still some copies out there. I sell
Flying
them every once in a
Starships
while.
by
Flying
Ronald
Starships.
B Moore on Amazon. If you want the
Subtle
one by
difference.
Ronald D Moore,
It's a different book.
it's a different book.
But he'll still sign it.
But he will sign it.
Yeah, exactly right. After Ronald D wrote a book one time, I can't remember what the title of it was. It was a Star Trek book, and he read. I think it had to do with one of the early movies. But at that time, he was using the credit Ron Moore.
Oh.
And I remember seeing him on a set one day, and I said, "By the way, Ron, I hope I don't know if I need to apologize. I'm sorry, but at Christmas, I signed this book and I give it to my friends." And he looked at me, he says, "That's all right. I tell my friends I have an Emmy."
Oh, that's brilliant.
Best story ever.
I love that.
Oh, we can't wait to have him on.
We have a
that's a
gift
wrap.
for you.
Oh, yeah, we have a gift.
Oh, we have a gift. Of course we do. The Woodford Reserve.
Oh my God, look at this.
Look at that. It's good stuff. Now. I don't actually know the
Wheat
Woodford.
whiskey. How cool. Well, thank you. How thoughtful.
For the drive home.
It's for the drive home.
For the drive home.
And special thanks to Barbara.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, thank
God
you so
bless
much.
you. That behind every great man, there's an even greater woman.
Indeed.
And there she is. God
Well
bless
put.
you.
That's
Even
true.
Mad Dog.
That's right.
Thank you, buddy.
That name
Yeah,
sounds
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Patreon members, if you're going to get a quick conversation about the transporters. So if you're not a Patreon member, hop on over to our Patreon and join the family.
Please like, subscribe, and join us on Patreon.